Hi y'all, I'm Fallen Ninja, and welcome to Animation Nation, where today we're going to be talking about the first season of Huntik Secrets and Seekers that ran from 2009 to 2012. So for the characters, I'm just going to talk about the main protagonist and the main antagonist, and all of the other supporting voice actors I will likely get to in the next episode for season 2. So let's get into it. Locke Lambert is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, who's the voice of Suzaku in Code Geass, and he's also voiced by Matt Kaplan, who is Ryza in Kurokami the Animation. Now Locke is a really clumsy, happy-go-lucky kid who has a lot to learn. He mostly just accidentally himself into things, and then either accidentally himself out of things, or has to be saved. He's not necessarily a damsel in distress type, because he does have a lot of natural talent, it's just he doesn't know how to use it. Sophie Castor-Will is voiced by Rebecca Solar, who's the voice of Tina and Stella in the Winx Club. She's from a noble family that's been around for centuries. She's very sophisticated, intelligent, can hold her own. I mean, she's been learning how to be a seeker her entire life, basically, because she's from an entire family of seekers. Dante Bell and Charrot are voiced by Mark Thompson, who is Casey in the 2003 version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now Dante is more like the main hero type that we normally see, especially in shows like this. He's very talented, clever, witty. He's just an all-around kind of guy. He can do just about anything. And Charrot is an ancient titan that has no amulet. We'll talk more about that when we get to the plot. He is a very helpful addition to the team, because if any of the team members have any questions about Titans, well, he is one. Zalia Moon is voiced by Karen Strassman, who is Colin Stodfeld in Code Geass. Now, Zalia is a lone wolf who eventually learns that she needs friends. She is also very highly skilled, very intelligent. We'll learn a little bit more about her later. And the professor is voiced by Mike Pollock, who is Dr. Eggman in basically all of the Sonic things. He is the leader of the organization that is opposed to the Huntik organization, and I will explain more about that right now as we get into the plot. So before we get any further, I suppose I have to explain what a seeker is. Unless you've seen this show, then you already know. Seekers have the ability to summon titans from amulets and rings, and some of them want to use them in order to better humanity, and others don't. They just want the power for themselves. Well, Locke finds out that he's a seeker, and that both of his parents were as well. And the thing that really sets this off, the catalyst for the entire plot, makes absolutely less and less sense as the series goes on, but Sophie is helping Locke in his dorm room with some homework, and they somehow knock a vase off of like a little shelf by his really tiny window, and out of it falls his dad's journal, which his dad, Ethan, vanished many years ago. And so they find his journal, which, why was it even there in the first place? Like, why was it in that vase? Why is that vase in his dorm room? I don't know, but it's the reason the whole plot happened, so we're gonna go with it, I guess. So most of the team's missions are centered around Ethan's journal, as he was trying to find the lost Amulet of Will, plus the legendary Titans of Mind, Body, and Spirit. So for our Huntik team, they are doing the same thing, trying to find the Amulet of Will, the legendary Titans, and they're trying to do that before the organization does. And if they come across any other amulets, or rings for that matter, they keep those out of the wrong hands as well. So their missions take them to many different places, and I'm going to list a few of them here in a second. A lot of these places don't seem like they should go together. They don't seem like they should work. But somehow, under this heading, under this umbrella, that everything is seeker-related, that these people were seekers, or that these places are somehow related to seekers, everything just makes sense. And you're gonna see here, because it's a mix of different like mythologies and religion and just, real places, and somehow they've managed to mix them all together and make it make sense. So some of the places they've been is Joan of Arc's Seeker Lair, Thor's Temple, the Lost Argo of Jason and the Argonauts, the Kingdom of Sutos, Ireland, which is where Locke is from, Medea's Island, King Solomon's Mines, Vlad Tepesh's, or Vlad the Impaler's, castle, the Lost City of Atlantis, Prague in the Czech Republic, which is where the organization is headquartered, Sir Lancelot's secret lair, Under the Sen, and the Tomb of Nefertiti. And that's just to name a few, because they go to about a completely different place every single episode. The settings in this are really nice, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but they really put a lot of attention to the details. Okay, we're going to get a little bit more into the plot here with my favorite episodes, because most of these episodes are very plot-centric, because the plot of this is very good. It's not necessarily original, because I'm sure you can think of a lot of other things where there's a person who has a special ability to be able to summon something from an object in order to fight for them. I'm sure you thought of probably like 100 things off the top of your head just now. So while this isn't very original, the plot is, and it's very interesting. So episode 14 is all work and no pay, and this one doesn't really have anything to do with the plot. It's just a really funny episode, because in this episode, the organization has managed to freeze Sophie's accounts that they had been using in order to fund their journeys, so they have to get jobs. And of course, there's a montage in there because Sophie and Locke have never had a job in their lives, where they get fired from 17 jobs in 10 days. And it's very funny. Episode 16, The Bookshop Hunter. We, as the audience, know that Zalia is a plant from the organization in order to spy on the Huntik organization. And we learn that Klaus is essentially her dad. He's the one who raised her. And in this episode, it mentions his experiments that they never explain. And we're going to learn from the next episode that it's not like this show doesn't get dark. So whether he was, experimenting on people, experimenting on Titans, experimenting on both, I think it would have been nice if they had explored that maybe just a little bit more, because I'm morbidly curious. This is also where Zalia's side story really heats up, which her inner conflict is really interesting to see, because on the one hand, she's part of the Huntik organization, and she's made all these friends, and then on the other hand, she's working for the organization who's basically her family, so there's just a conflict of interest there, and her, inner turmoil about this situation that she's found herself in. It's really interesting to listen to her essentially make a decision on who she is going to fully support. And also, Klaus's bookshop was just a really fun setting as well. Episode 17, The Vampire Loses Its Fangs. In this episode, Zalia officially chooses a side, and there's a point where she pushes Klaus, who's her father figure, off of the roof, like a really tall roof. And it is mentioned later that Klaus never came back from that mission. So she literally killed somebody. And so this is where the show ends up taking a little bit of a darker turn, because we also learn in this episode that Metz, who is the person who trained Dante, who's the head of the Huntik organization, is dying from a curse, because he disturbed the resting places of the legendary Titans. The Atlantis episodes, which is episode 20, The Unseen Guide, and episode 21, Coming of Age, these episodes are really good. So in the first one, we get to see more about Ethan and his journey. And it does this, not like a side-by-side thing, but it'll show us his part of the journey, basically, in the past. And then it'll cut back to the present and show us Locke and everybody's journey in the present. And they're almost exactly mirrored, and it's really cool. And the Atlantis tests that happen in the second episode, maybe the end of the first one as well, they really show why they work so well together as a team, because there are 4 tests that they have to go through, and there are 4 of them. They can't repeat anybody. Everybody has to do one in order to prove themselves. But they actually have to stand there and talk about their strengths and weaknesses in order to be able to do these tests the most effectively that they can. I mean, everybody besides Locke is very well rounded, so a lot of them could do all of the tests, but they really had to fit themselves to Locke, essentially, because they were you are really the only one who might be able to do this test, and then they had to figure out which of them was going to do the others. We don't get a lot of shows that really delve into people's strengths and weaknesses, that really delve into their personalities like that. So this was a really interesting episode. We also get to catch a glimpse of Locke's true abilities when he's not accidentally himself into things. This is how he accidentallys himself out of things. And then the last arc, which is episode 23, To Be Together, episode 24, The Secret of Two Generations, episode 25, The Divine Comedy, and episode 26, The Mission. This finally fills in some of the plot gaps, but it also brings up more questions that it doesn't answer. So we learn who the professor is. We learn that his name is Simon and that he was there with Metz whenever they disturbed the resting places of the legendary Titans. Except Simon isn't on his deathbed at the moment. So I went on a bit of a rant here about how the professor's link with Arachnos didn't really make any sense. And then I remembered that Arachnos is the legendary Titan of Mind. So that actually makes perfect sense. Anyway, I cut all of that out. Here's what happened afterward. But that's the only reason that Simon is still alive, is because of his deal with Arachnos. We also learn that the amulets protect the Titans from being destroyed. So that brings up a question about Chariot, because he doesn't have an amulet. Is he tied to like a particular seeker? Is he self-sustaining? Like, if he gets destroyed, does he just die then? That also brings up another question of, like, do Titans, because they can be destroyed, do they, like, feel pain? Can they feel pain? Like, they're living beings, right? That's a little crazy to think about. So I'm going to stop. In this episode, we learned that one of the only other ways, I guess besides making a deal with Arachnos, to getting rid of the curse is to have the Amulet of Will and all three legendary Titans, because you need them in order to summon Overlost, who can cure you of your curse. So basically, unless you want to go on like a very, very long, very dangerous road trip, it's probably best to just not. You know? It's best to just leave them alone. But also, Metz is cured of his curse after Overlost is summoned. But what about the professor? Is it because of his connection to Arachnos that he isn't affected by Overlost being summoned? Or is it I can only uncurse people who are good, or whatever? I have no idea. Am I thinking too much about a kid's show? Yes, but that's what I'm here for. Now, the animation is really good. I love all of the colors because it changes depending on what's happening. So like when they're in Prague, in the Czech Republic, at the organization's headquarters, or when they were in Klaus's bookshop, they used like darker colors in order to signify that, you know, these are the bad people, these are where the bad people are. But otherwise, it's really colorful. I am just a kid at heart. All you have to do is sit me in front of the TV and show me some pretty colors, and I'll leave you alone for many hours. The action flows pretty well most of the time. It even has some hair physics. Of course, it's not individual strands of hair, because that would be way too hard for a serialized TV show. But they kind of do it in like chunks, and they move the different chunks around when the wind is blowing and such. And I'm going to bring up the attention to detail again, because in the second episode, they give the characters a costume change. Like, before they've even really cemented their style, they get a costume change. And I love that, because not a lot of shows do that, and not a lot of shows did this around the time that this was made. And I like that so much because it gives us another glimpse of their personality. You know, I mean, what they wear on a daily basis, it does say something about them, you know, as a person, as a character. But seeing what they wear in different situations, like if they're going somewhere cold, or if they're just hanging out at home all day, or whatever, I feel like that gives us an even deeper look into their personality. In conclusion, if you couldn't tell, I absolutely love this show. It is definitely up there in my favorite cartoons. It's got some good, witty humor. The concept is absolutely delightful, even though it's not original. The characters are very refreshing. They're not complete stereotypes, and I really appreciate that about this show. There is lots of action. Because the organization shows up in about every single episode, they have to fight about it. So it is full of moving colors, which are even better. There are so many different settings that tie so many different myths and moments and history together, and it's so interesting to see that. It's so cool, honestly. It is so cool. So let me know what you thought about Huntik Secrets and Seekers down in the comments below, and if you have anything else you want to talk about, anything else you would like me to talk about, then you can put those down there too. And as always, I will catch y'all on the flip side.